lawmakers apparently are inching every bit so closer to a $15 billion bailout for Detroit. That vote may happen today. The two animals are back today, just the two of us here. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Hemmer, live at America's Newsroom, and welcome back, Heather.
Thank you. I'm Heather Nauert in for Megyn Kelly today. White House and congressional Democrats worked all through the night on a plan which will cut big checks for the big three automakers as early as next week. We're talking December 15th. They could have their money.
And I mentioned this, Heather, the House expected to take up a $15 billion proposal, which calls for a so-called car czar to oversee the restructuring, the transactions, how they operate, how they reform themselves. The loan expected to keep the struggling auto industry from going under at least for the next few months. Congressman Dan Burton out of Indiana has a vote on this. Sir, good morning to you.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Do you still stand with a no vote against the auto industry?
I do until they make some concessions that are very important. And I'd just like to tell you that Senator Corker of Tennessee enumerated these very well last week during the Senate hearings. One was that the auto unions pay the same amount as the foreign automakers. Right now there's about a $28 to $30 per hour disparity when you include the benefits. And when you have that kind of a disparity, you can't be competitive in the long run.
It seems as if the unions are given a little bit on this. You know what the unions would say here and the car companies would say? They'd say, hey man, you helped out the bank 6 months ago. Well then, so today, what's the difference between cars and banks?
Well, the way we helped out the bank 6 months ago was the wrong way to do it. Throwing $700 billion at the Secretary of the Treasury and is just the wrong approach. We really still don't know where they're spending that money or how they're spending it. There should have been much more consideration given before we even considered that. And I'm one of the people that believes in letting the free enterprise system work its will, and to just start having the federal government get involved in every aspect of the private sector is something that's very dangerous. Long term, it could cause us to become a quasi-socialist country. We need to let the free market system work as much as possible. Now, I don't mind looking closely at helping the automakers out if there's certain criterion that's met. And,
well, apparently some of the criteria is having a car czar to oversee the restructuring, make sure they come back by March of 2009 to show the reforms they've made. Is that good enough for you?
Well, I think that's one of the things that has to be done. If the federal government chooses to bail the automakers out, we certainly have to have oversight. But I still have real reservations about doing the bailout. If we really want to help solve the problem, they ought to do the same thing that they would do in a bankruptcy court. Now, Senator Corker came up with the idea of doing those things without going to the bankruptcy court. If they would agree to those things prior to the federal government getting involved, then he said, and I think he's probably right, we ought to, at that point, we could start considering giving some assistance.
It seems that, well, you're in the minority now, and Democrats rule the House and the Senate, as you're well aware, and the White House apparently is behind this deal, too. Look down to April, down the road in 2009. If we're having this conversation then, where are we?
Well, it depends on what happens. If they give them the $15 billion bailout right now, and things haven't changed in April, I'm sure they're going to be coming back asking for considerably more money. And just how far does the taxpayer go, and how many industries do we get involved in? Do we get involved in banking? Now the newspapers are about to go belly up. Do we start helping the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times? At some point, we have to let the free enterprise system work. Okay. Now, I understand the ramifications of letting this thing go on and the automakers going out of business. So I'm sympathetic, and we ought to be doing something. But there has to be certain things met before we can even consider giving them a bailout.
You raised a number of interesting and certainly valid points. Dan Burton, thank you for your time.
Thank
Republican
you, Bill.
Out of Indiana. We will watch it from here today. Maybe we'll get the vote this afternoon. Sir, thank you. Heather?
Bill, you know, the interesting thing about this is that free market types say the difference between the banking industry and the big three automakers. The banking industry has a long-term viable product and way to stay in the marketplace. The big three automakers don't. So keeping all eyes still on Capitol Hill, if that bailout plan passes, the money will come from a loan package that Congress initially set up to help automakers invest in green technologies. And that's one of the conflicts that we're looking at here. Detroit has said that it will be very expensive to build cars that reach tough new clean air standards. But the new administration says the environment is a top priority. Coming up in less than 1 hour, the House Energy Independence Committee will take a look at the car maker bailout plans. They will hold a hearing to, quote, review the energy implications. And it seems hard to imagine that will derail a bailout deal over clean air concerns. But nevertheless, we are watching this, and we will update you as we learn more.